And I'll say something else, and I certainly can't guarantee this. And this could just be, this is just my opinion. You might agree, you might disagree. But I'm not 100% convinced that this is a them versus us situation. And I say that because war always accompanies a currency life cycle, the end of a currency life cycle transitioning into a new. And what we've been witnessing, particularly since 2008, has been a globally synchronized movement. So, does it stop that quickly? I don't know. Or will this new war be used to justify a lot more money printing on the part of the global central banks?
Right.
Right? Because after all, how can they stop now that they have to fund this war? And it's not just the ECB. I mean, it's all of them. I have all of them over here. What they need to do when they make this transition, and they know this, I mean, they've had lots of experience, is they need to keep things as close to normal as possible. Right. So we've actually been transitioning to a digital world since the 50s when they let us have credit cards that there was no asset behind it. So the digital dollar is a programmable money, like the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. We're moving into a realm where everything is programmed. So you start with gold that actually gave the public the control, right, over the government. Because if they didn't like what the government did, you'd go in and you'd convert this garbage into real money. But that, and then this is completely decentralized and also invisible. And according to the Bank for International Settlements, does not run, it's the only financial instrument that does not run any counterparty risk and protects you from political risk, which I think is very important these days. But then they took that away from us, and this is not real, but it's from the money gun. But neither is the one that says Federal Reserve note on the top that we use as our tool of barter. So they could create that inflation and take away its purchasing power value, but nominally you still had $100. Well, now they have to take that away so that you cannot save. They now will control not just your purchasing power value, but your principal as well. But what's the same in every single case? They're all called the dollar, right? Nothing else is the same, but the name is the same because it's very hard. One thing that they knew when they created this fiat money system, which is a government-based system, is that people marry the currency of the state. So it is so hard, even experiencing inflation from the day you were born. Even that, it's so hard for people to comprehend that the dollar could go away when quite honestly it has gone away. There's virtually no purchasing power left. They have to attack your principal. That's why they have to take it digital, because then you have no control. Well, I was there when they shifted the currency for the inflation that we felt, that everybody's now talking about how the inflation is the highest that it's been since the 70s. Well, what happened in the 60s and 70s, right? We had the Vietnam War, and the government was funding it by inflating the dollar, right? And so the world lost trust in the dollar, and there was a run on it in the 60s when governments could still take dollars and convert them and pull the gold out of the system that created those restrictions. So I remember that inflation as a teenager. And then once Paul Volcker, who, I was there And I remember it because I remember having a 15% 5-year certificate of deposit, right?
Yeah.
So he ratcheted up interest rates. I really think it was to give enough ramp room to control inflation, because the genius of this whole fiat money system that they started in 1913, that had not been attempted before, was for the central banks to control the rate and speed of inflation. And how do they do that? Well, they do that with interest rates, right? So when Paul Volcker came out and ramped up interest rates above the rate of inflation, there was a lot of room to go. And so they could then control it by raising the interest rates if it was running too hot, stopped people from borrowing and spending as much, or they lowered them if they wanted to heat the inflation up. That would inspire people to borrow and spend. But now we've been anchored at zero since 2008. So, they tested the lower bounds, right? There was lots and lots of negative interest rate bonds, debt out there. But they saw what the limitations were. As frustrating as it might be, I have a lot of hope because I do see people more and more waking up to it. I really don't think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March of 2009. And if the money that's gone into these cryptocurrencies by individuals, forget corporations, forget businesses, but just the individuals, if that money instead went into gold, we could still see them create more contracts to keep the price suppressed. But darn well gold and silver would be substantially higher than it is now. And if you're not spending, since we're a consumer-driven economy, if you're not spending fast enough, what do? They just lower those interest rates more into negative territory.
Right.
And you can sit there and watch your principal evaporate. And rather than that, what are you most likely to do? You're most likely to go shopping and buy anything that you think can hold its value better. So why not preempt that, right? Why not go into gold and silver? That is the only bargain out there that I see due to its fundamental value. I don't give a crap. I mean, I'm an ex-stockbroker. I'm an ex-banker. I understand this language, thank goodness. So I know that this is real money. And this is real money. And it's never gone to zero because it has both of them have the broadest base of functionality of any